ladies and gentlemen, I have an amazing guest for you today, Basia Haszlakiewicz, a wonderful person. You will not guess what she did back in the day. She actually played American football, full contact, full touch, American football. Today her daughter produced a movie about the team that Basia played on, the Houston Hurricanes. Basia, thank you so much for finding time and talking with us today.
Oh, thank you.
How did it happen? How did a woman back in the 70s, where almost no females played professional football, ended up on a team?
Yeah. You know, I think it's America's game, and it's no surprise that women want to play America's game. And you know, during the 70s, we started to see a huge change in the attitudes about women athletes, and Title IX had a lot to do with that, because that emerged in the early 70s. Yeah. Of course, it didn't get enforced very well until much later, but nonetheless, it was an inspirational time. Okay. And so we athletes were very encouraged and emboldened and found new venues to prove ourselves. And Billie Jean King is one of those examples, you know. So she took on the world and she won. But
you know, it's one thing for women to play tennis, to play volleyball, those sports that have a legacy, have a long-lasting tradition of female participation. American football is something on a totally different sort.
Yeah, it is. It's the full contact part is probably kind of counterintuitive to what people think women like to do, but that's simply not true. I was introduced to football in high school, just like so many others, but as a, you know, as someone who watched, you know, from the stands as audience. But I got to college, and all of a sudden there were all these women playing football. They were playing flag football. It was primarily an intramural organization formed by sororities. I didn't belong to sorority, but there were a few independent teams that evolved or created, and we played each other. And I will tell you, you know, it was a surprise to me to see those sorority girls play rough, and they were good athletes. Nobody was holding back. I did not expect that, because you always think of sorority girls, you know, as being prissy, you know, but they were not. They were tough. They were tough athletes, and great competitors, so I became very fond of the sport. I was athletic all my life anyway. But in college, you know, that was great. I really enjoyed it. Moved to Houston, and one day I was sitting there watching the news, which I rarely did because I was usually working, you know, long hours. And Anita Martini, one of our broadcasters, the woman who first broke the locker room barrier.
First woman admitted to the locker room?
That's right. Wow. So she was promoting the teams, the Houston Hurricanes, on the news. So they're having tryouts, you know. And she let the you know it was just a news piece.
You just walked in onto the
I just walked into it, you know, and I went, what in the world? You know, so I was meant to show up at the tryouts, and you know, they needed as many people they can get, so it wasn't really much of a tryout. but you know something about football, you can play.
What position did you play?
I always played defense.
Defense?
In college, I played defense.
Well, corner, safety, linebacker?
Safety and corner, yes. Okay. How did you know that?
I know stuff. I know things about American football. This is also my game, honestly. I don't play, but I love it. The game has so many... It's such a deep game. It's wonderful to watch, and it's wonderful to analyze.
Yeah, yes. So it's people think of it so physical, but you know the physical part is, you know, this bit.
That's the end result of long preparations, a lot of thinking.
Well, as a defensive player, you know, I will tell you that that moment where the play ends theoretically and the next play starts, you're still playing. Yeah. You're still watching. You're observing. You're looking at all the nuances of what the offense
is. Formations.
Well, that and just even their body language. You know, somebody gets an assignment, they twitch or they act differently, yes. Or they pretend to, you know, be nonchalant. Well,
okay, yeah, that's,
so
you're so right.
You're constant. You know, it's not over when the play's over.
You're not just watching the quarterback and listening to him audible, her audible.
That's right.
You watch the body language of everybody.
That's right. Yep.
Wow. Yeah. I think that camaraderie. Football teams are huge. Those locker rooms are huge. There's, I don't know, the NFL team has what, 53 players on an active roster.
Yeah.
How was it with the Hurricanes?
Well, at the onset, there were maybe 11 or 12 of us, and we played both.
Both sides. You had to be these Iron Women.
Yeah. Well, yeah. But eventually, over a period of like 3 years, we grew to over 30 members. And that was much more comfortable.
Yeah, and was the camaraderie visible?
Oh, yes.
In football, I think more so than in other sports, you have to have your teammates back.
Yes, so it really is a unitary movement. If it's such a test of division of labor, and if you can't have 11 quarterbacks.
Yeah, only one or two people will touch the ball.
You know, you have to have all these different people. You know, and that's very representative of life. You have to have lots of different people in different roles and different capabilities, you know, to deliver, you know, whatever it is that you're working on.
Yeah.
And football is so indicative of that. You know, you have so many different body shapes and mentalities.
Those mentalities are very intriguing because offensive linemen should be overprotective. Protection is their number one job. People who play your position should be delivering the paybacks, right? Should be inflicting the pain on the opposition.
Well, in the defensive back, not so much. You just have to get in the way. You know?
Exactly. But you are the interrupter.
Yeah, I would never. In college, I played middle linebacker, but flag football is really different. Flag football is about speed. And but once I got to meeting these girls, and they were all so large. At the time, I was very thin. So yeah, put her in the backfield. But I mean, there were women that were over 200 pounds on the line. So.
How many games did you play in the course of a season?
Oh, that's very tough to say. I think in the best seasons we probably played 7 or 8 games.
Yeah, I'm asking because those games are very demanding physically. I think that recovery process is very complicated after a football game.
Yeah, it is. There's always injuries, you know. Yeah. You play football, you're going to get injured.
Did you have to deal with some of these injuries?
Oh yeah, I broke my foot. Well, I didn't break my foot. Somebody did it for me. I broke it in 4 of the metatarsals.
Wow.
I just didn't get up fast enough, and that's, you know, a lesson learned. You're down on the ground. You got to get up, get out of the way. Fingers, you know.
Yeah. Like, the Hurricanes lasted for how many years?
Over 3.5. Yeah, 3.5.
Yeah. I bet it's tough for ladies, for female football league to survive and to succeed in a long run.
Oh, goodness, yeah.
How many people actually watched your games?
Very few. In Houston, very few. We had just too much competition from, you know, other sources, you know, professional sources.
But when you went on the road?
So on the road, we would travel to places like Tulsa, Oklahoma, to Oklahoma City, Lawton, Dallas, San Antonio. And the smaller cities were much more well attended.
Yeah.
they didn't have any options, and they were more, attuned to their people. I mean, they're closer to each other.
Yeah.
But Houston being so large, and Dallas, had the same problem. They had a worse problem than we did, actually. But it was, even though we were, on the opposing team, we'd love to go to Oklahoma.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, you drew that crowd energy.
That's right. It's so different to be playing in front of people.
Yeah. Who are your coaches? Were you also coached by female coaches?
No. That was a ways to go. We had a number of different coaches. Some that failed because they just didn't understand how to coach women, and it's different. It really, really is different. Where the coaches that finally settled in, Jeff and Tommy, they were fabulous. They were just really easygoing. They explained the game. They explained strategies, as opposed to some of the other coaches who were just, they were so rugged. They were just telling you what to do without explaining things.
Yeah.
Like, you're not going to tell me to do something, guy, unless you tell me why I'm doing it. And all of us were already mature. I mean, we weren't teenagers, and we were all working women. We were in our 20s and 30s. So we weren't going to be bossed around.
How did it happen that your daughter, I mean, I can tell that probably she heard a lot of stories about you playing football. I think that was the main motive behind her looking into that, digging deep into Houston Hurricanes. But what was the trigger? What made her do that movie?
So this has been going on for 7 years now.
It's a long project.
Yeah, it was a long project. The first hurdle was that she had to get me to agree to help her, and I like, oh, God, who cares? So long ago, nobody cared then. Who's going to care now? And so I just ignored her. She asked me to find some.
So you were holding her back in a way.
I did for a year, and so finally she, one year I said, "What do you want for Christmas?" And she said, "I want you to find the football members, team members, so I can get started on this." And I said, God, she's really serious. And so we spent 6 months tracking people down.
Wow.
Because there was no internet, hardly any kind of email, kind of correspondence. We called each other,
on the landlines.
On the landlines. This is how we communicated. And then when the league and the team collapsed, I mean, it went like that. I mean, all of a sudden we weren't there anymore, and so we just totally scattered without having any kind of means of contacting each other. So it took quite some time.
How many people did you find?
25.
Really?
Yeah. Unfortunately, the first one that we found was through a obituary.
Wow.
Our first coach, Robert, I found, because I knew that he'd been a pastor in a particular city outside of Houston, so I looked up that church, and I found his wife, who had been our manager, and then she found somebody else, her sister-in-law, and then it just started, and once we got a certain number of people, then they knew somebody else.
The snowball effect started rolling.
Yeah, so the reunion that we had after the filming was completed, there were over 20 people at the reunion, which is spectacular. Yeah.
What kind of movie is it? I think a lot of scenes, a lot of games had to be reenacted.
Yes.
Right now, but do you have any original footage back from the 70s?
Yeah, we actually did, and that was another thing. Archival film was very difficult to find, and actually, a lot of the film that you're going to see, the still shots, were mine. I did them as I was traveling, and when I was not playing.
Yeah.
And when I was playing, I gave the camera to somebody else, you know, and they were clicking. But really, a lot of those shots will be from my camera. And then there was archival footage from the Toledo Troopers, because they were the most decorated women's team ever. And they had a lot of press coverage. So there's footage from them, and there's some from Oklahoma of live footage. But then there's dioramas that Olivia insisted on. So these are miniature recreations.
Yes.
And she created them because this was what she remembers from her recollection as a child. You know,
how she visualized it.
As a child, this is how I saw it. And we had this massive dollhouse. The girls had this massive dollhouse. So it's kind of an extension of how she saw me playing football.
Wow.
And then reenactments were absolutely fabulous. So the Houston Energy, which is one of two current teams in Houston, were our stand-ins. And the reenactments took place in one of the stadiums where we played.
Wow, that's wonderful.
Yeah, it was great.
Awesome. Let's talk about Olivia for a second. Did you know from the get-go that she's going to be an artist, that she's going to be a cinematographer?
No, not at all.
What kind of girl was she?
Oh, she's brilliant. She's intellectually brilliant, and she's artistically brilliant. She was a phenomenal violinist, just unbelievably talented. And anyway, she intellectually, she almost aced the math SATs, and it was like, we had no idea what she was going to do.
She could be anybody.
Yeah,
based on what you said.
Yeah, well, really, truly. And then we were just, I guess we were not totally surprised, but I don't know, disappointed, but I want to go to NYU and become a director. I go, what? What? But first of all, she got accepted at NYU, which was, you know, it was a big deal. But the reason she got accepted was she created a film in French.
Really?
Yeah, that was one of the submissions, her portfolio submissions. So she's like very unique. It was just a very different. She's different, you know.
She's gotta be.
Yeah.
She's gotta be. You gotta have something special in you to put the stories together like movies.
Yeah.
What other projects she was working on other than the Hurricanes?
Well, right now she's in Atlanta, filming a vampire series.
No kidding.
Yeah, she's been there since July, and she'll be coming back through Houston and at Christmas, and she lives in LA now. And she developed a. I can't even begin to tell you. I mean, she's been in the industry for almost 20 years, so she's filmed a lot.
Yeah.
But she's developed a talent for low light level filming. This is why she got.
Vampire would be awesome for this kind of. Yeah.
Yeah, and romances and things like that. But she's. There's just a lot of variety of things that she's created.
Perfect. Let's come back to football for a second. You live in Houston right now?
Yeah.
So who do you root for? The Bears, the Texans?
Kansas City.
Kansas City? The Chiefs? Oh, good for you.
Right in the middle. That's where I went to school. So.
Yeah. And it's easy to root for the Chiefs now.
Yes, yeah. Rooting for the Texans is like.
Yeah, exactly. Just like rooting for the Bears. We're going to go through exactly the same.
Yeah.
Only us a little longer.
Well, Kansas City is a good organization. I mean, they they're very consistent, and they play good football.
And do you still watch a lot of football, or this is a chapter that's
yeah, I do.
You do.
And even if I'm busy, you know, doing my work and everything, I'm hearing it. You know, my husband may be watching, I'm hearing it.
Yeah. I'm sure your name, Basia Hašlakiewicz, that last name Hašlakiewicz, is something that resonates extremely well with our audience. Your brother, who's secretly watching us from the other side of the camera, Andy is the vice president of Chicago Society.
Yeah.
His wife Bożena is extremely active with Legion of Young Polish Women, for example.
Yes.
So do you visit them a lot here in Chicago?
Not a lot. No, we kind of go back and forth or meet somewhere else. But yeah, the family's growing. We interact different parts of the country.
Yeah. The Hurricanes. Tell us, where can people see that movie? I know it's going to be shown here in Chicago very soon.
Yes, so it starts showing tomorrow at the Wayfarer Theater in Highland Park. And I think it runs for 6 days. You'd have to just take a look at the website to see how many days, but it shows like three times a day for about a week. And on Saturday, there's a special showing at noon. And I will be speaking on the Q&A panel after the film.
Yeah, with Zbyszek Banaś, who you, ladies and gentlemen, also know very, very well. We'll put all this information in the description of this interview. So that's a wonderful opportunity to see a great game, a great movie. Just to close it, you know, we cannot talk about female football without at least mentioning Legends Football League, Lingerie Football League, the spin-off of female professional football that was focused on sexiness,
showmanship.
If that's a word. We spoke about it briefly before, and you have very good take on that particular game.
Yeah. So if you see the movie, they're featured in there, you know, as part of one of the clips, and what you'll learn is that even though these were women who were, you know, dolled up in sexy clothes, I mean, they were real athletes, and they were there to play football. You know, that was their only opportunity. So they were going to take it, even if it meant playing in their underwear. Yeah. But they're athletes.
And they were much better athletes than they ever gotten credit for.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And, you know, you watch some of these people, these women who were throwing those footballs 40 yards, yeah, no problem. Yeah. The receivers. And, you know, that actually started like in the 1960s. Sid Friedman, you know, started that whole business. He was, you know, a showman. But eventually, you know, women really wanted to get serious about it, and that's when WPFL emerged. So,
Basia, thank you so much for your time. I'm jealous, honestly. I'm telling you, I'm jealous because I would love to know how it is to wear full pads, helmet, and try to break up a pass or try to catch a pass. I've never experienced that, although I love football tremendously.
Good. Yeah. Well, and you told me a lot about the teams forming in Poland.
Yeah.
Which is wonderful because Olivia filmed in Norway and in England. She filmed teams in Europe that are playing, and it's incredible how many teams there are, women's teams and men's teams too. How the game is moving out into the world. Yeah. And there are hundreds of teams here in the U.S. now.
Yeah, big shout out to Warsaw Sirens, who are I think the biggest female semi-professional football team in Poland.
Syreny.
Syreny, exactly.
Great.
Basia Hašlakiewicz, the lady who played cornerback.
Corner and safety.
And safety.
Yeah.
Did you also play some receiver, I guess?
Oh, I tried not to.
To avoid those hits?
I did not want to get hit.
The Hurricanes movie created by Olivia Kwon, daughter of Basia, will be available for you to see this coming week. Look up for the detailed information about when and where you can see that movie. Basia, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.